Good evening. Who says a tearful goodbye to your quick departing and long-loved German manager, but then steals your Dutch coach and makes him the best bald manager in the Premier League because we've
Bald
got
is
him
back.
now. Bald is back. It's us, the American Scouser TV Thursday night podcast, known to the cool kids as ASTV. You got to get the pronunciation right. ASTV with Brian with his brand new internet signal.
Clear as day.
The future is now, as they say.
No more CompuServe/AOL.
And here is Trevor to also bask in the newness of Brian's great internet signal.
Clarity.
That's why I went for the blurred background. There has to be some semblance of chaos.
But yeah, it's good. It's good to get Brian into the 20th century. Because we're all probably for us at least on the Thursday podcast, we're probably still in the 20th century, just about getting into the 21st. Because it's Thursday and there's always some sort of technical issues. But tonight, as we say greetings to Alan in Houston, we'll be talking about the managers, the manager merry-go-round. Pochettino and Brendan Rodgers was a topic of hot discussion on our Discord channel during the week. So we will carry that discussion on here tonight because it's fun. Poch and Raj, we call that segment because if you're Irish, you'll know what I mean about that. I'm not explaining. You got to be cool like me. And then here's the question that we'll be posing for the night. I just said it to Brian before we went on air. At what point do you personally, and we want to get people chiming in on this in the comments, will Jurgen Klopp stop being your Liverpool manager in your head before the season starts, and then you're mentally focused and preparing on Arne Slot now being the Liverpool manager? Because that's a thought I had during the week. When will I stop thinking that Jurgen, expecting Jurgen to do a press conference and start looking forward to Baldy Arne? Bald is back, as we said. But first, we'll get going with just number one. How are things with both of you boys, Brian? How are you?
As I said, those were days. Those were days without missing dogs. Those were days with bad internet. And tonight would be my last night of being in my 40s. So those were the days.
Trevor, how are you tonight?
Despite being stuck behind a tractor for the last 25 or so minutes, I'm doing fantastic.
Man, are you living near me now?
No, that's a general Rhode Island issue. You could avoid all the traffic. You can do all of the weaving that you can, and then a tractor can just absolutely just put the kibosh on all of your plans.
I think that people who live in New England know exactly what that pain is. I think we all suffer it up here. But let's start with our first topic, the managerial merry-go-round. Managers leaving, getting sacked, walking away. This painfully ourselves from Jurgen Klopp. But Ten Hag, apparently the rumour is he's going to be sacked regardless of what happens on Saturday at the FA Cup final. Tuchel leaving Bayern Munich despite talks. And then Vincent Kompany apparently going to be the manager of Bayern Munich, which is laughable as far as I'm concerned. The aforementioned Pochettino sacked this week by Chelsea, and David Moyes leaving West Ham and being replaced by Lopetegui, who's, I can never say his last name, but by that guy anyway. We're not talking about those specific managers in general, but it is the crazy season, Brian, isn't it, in English football? There's always, you didn't, with a budget of 2 shillings and half of a Twix, you didn't get us into the Champions League, and we only had 7 players on the roster. Or you won us two Champions Leagues in 1 year, an unheard of achievement. But we're getting rid of you anyway because this guy has a sexier name. It is the crazy season. Who would want to be a manager in the English Premier League?
Oh, probably. I don't know. It's good. Well, now who's the longest serving manager in a Premiership? Because Klopp left right there. So who is the longest serving?
It's got to be Guardiola.
Yeah,
Guardiola now, yeah.
I mean, and he'll be probably gone next year. I mean, for what he said at his press conference over the past weekend. So yeah, no, I mean, it's like I still don't understand like the Chelsea stance with Pochettino. I don't think Pochettino is that we'll get on that subject later, right there. But I think that they're topic to say they want to go with a younger manager. You sack Graham Potter. You need to give Graham Potter even a chance. But
They'd
now you
probably
go
sack Harry Potter now, to be fair, if they're going for youth.
Well, yeah. But I really think, it's looking at it. I mean, I can see West Ham's movement right there with David Moyes. I mean, David Moyes, they've had it for a while, and they just don't see the progression that they want to. It seemed like that was more of a mutual kind of breakup. And I think that they actually made a good move right there with Lopetegui. I think Lopetegui's a perfect manager for them. But, I wouldn't be a manager in the Premiership right now. I think your head's on, there's too much commitment right now as far as like money and with places and all that. It's just too much. I mean, I think that you're always going to go out there and have your looking over your shoulder for that knife to come at you and to get hacked away. Especially even if you finish the top half, because I mean, right now, what is the goalpost right there that you need to have to be a successful manager in this league now? That's the big question. I mean, I think that some of these managers don't even know that yet.
Trevor, Brendan Rodgers, we're going to talk about him more in depth like we are with Pochettino, but he took Leicester to 2 fifth-place finishes. Claudio Ranieri did the impossible and won them a league title, and he was sacked the year after, right in the middle of the next season. We've been talking across the shows, lauding the work of Unai Emery at Aston Villa, who's done a fantastic job there, but it just seems that for some owners and maybe even some sets of fans, success is just not good enough. It's a weird situation, isn't it?
Oh, it's incredibly odd. And the biggest one for me is Pochettino. He's a guy that finally seemed to get that mix right, and he got players to buy into what he was doing. And the end of the season, to get Chelsea from a team that was in the double digits in the table into Europe, it was something that should have been lauded, but instead got him canned, which it just shows the instability at Chelsea and just how the super money people that are coming into this sport have no fucking clue what they're doing. Todd, everybody's like, oh man, this is going to be a new era where we're getting rid of Roman Abramovich, this guy who was he just fires managers willy-nilly, and we're going to get these guys that come in and really just have their shit together, and we're just going to bring stability. And if you want to count Bruno Salto's reign, this is 5 managers in 2 years. That's disgusting. And the fact that there's three of them that they're paying like buyouts to still is crazy. And who is going into that situation, no matter looking at that roster with the promise that's there, not immediately going in thinking that they're next in the guillotine. If you don't get Chelsea to a league title or you get them to significant European progress, what makes anybody think that they're not going to be axed? And the big thing that I see right now is, and the memes are like, oh, Brighton fired their manager, so we got to just follow Brighton's suit because we just take all of Brighton's things and we try to do them in our own darker blue way. I don't get it. I don't. I don't feel bad because it's something where they got forced into it from obvious circumstances, but you never like to see something just completely consistently not be able to be stable, because it hurts the product overall. If you have that just level of chaos in a league, it's going to trickle down through everything else, because you're going to have players that don't know whether they're going to be shipped off. You don't have managers that know they're going to be fired, and people are trying to like fill holes everywhere, and you just have that absolute powder keg in the middle of it. And I don't feel yeah, I don't feel just super sorry for like Pochettino because he's making his money and he's gonna fall back on his feet, no problem or anything. But just the way that sets up a lot of the other potential openings in the league just makes things just more chaotic, which I'm not particularly a fan of.
Brian, I'm gonna flip the coin a little bit because we could complain all day about new owners and chairman and all that coming in and sack new managers, but De Zerbi has done a fantastic job at Brighton, but Brighton took the risk on him in the first place, and I believe he's gone at the end of the season, or he's gone now, or he's on his way out. McKenna, Kieran McKenna, let's say again.
Yeah, De Zerbi's gone.
He's gone. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow.
So he's left the club that gave him a chance of putting him on the platform, essentially. Then Kieran McKenna has done a fantastic job getting Ipswich into the Premier League, and now already he looks like he's making sounds for leaving Ipswich. You could kind of say job done and all that, but there seems to me there's a sense that you brought them up. Let's give it 1 year, and then then make your move to a bigger club, show what you can do in the top league. So the loyalty thing is a two-way street, isn't it? Because there are managers, not everybody's Jurgen Klopp, not everybody's loyal to the club because they've emotionally invested in it. There are some very, very cynical, career-oriented managers who will say all the right things. Brendan Rodgers being a fantastic example as well, who will say all the right things, but the first time the grass looks greener on the other side, they're off. So it really is a complex situation, isn't it? One way or the other.
It really is. It also makes me kind of wonder where we're getting this whole like flipping the page to these young managers right there who are lacking a lot of experience. I mean, because at one point right there we were looking at over the past couple of seasons, you always wanted a manager who has already been through like 2 or 3 different clubs. Has had some little bit of trial and tribulation, and had some a little bit underneath their feet. To go after a manager who just got promoted, and you're now all of a sudden you're going to go there and put him in a spot with considerably a top one of the big 6. That's just crazy. I just don't even understand how you would even want him. It is apparently, I guess Chelsea and Man United are talking to him about coming there taking over the reins. Of course, with Man United, you promoted Ten Hag right there, who I guess you could kind of say we're in the same kind of thing. Still a not very proven manager right there. I mean, but the philosophy of Ten Hag was a lot different from the philosophy that they turned over from. We're going to a manager who has the similar philosophy of attack that Klopp did. So it's more like a straight line turn the page right there. You still have the same story. But with De Zerbi leaving Brighton, that's crazy. I figured De Zerbi was probably going to get tapped up by somebody. I just didn't figure that they would have been a mutual departure, which means that to me, De Zerbi is probably going to go to Barcelona, probably, or more or less, or somebody like that. Because De Zerbi is a pretty decent manager. I just don't think that he fits our philosophy. That was the only reason I was kind of against him coming to us right there. But it's this younger manager turning thing that's going on with these guys who are like in their 30s and 40s. Also that you're thinking that they're at the ability to manage. You're trying to uncover the next Mourinho at that point right there, and it's like it can backfire on you seriously. And I think that if Chelsea does that, I mean, of course, it's a poison chalice to go take that Chelsea job right now anyway, but I wouldn't want to take that job as the Ipswich manager. I want to take my squad up there, prove myself right there with what I have, and then then go to a better job. But just to go jump to that, you're destined to get fired by December.
Trevor, the thing about the young managers and look what Brian says there about uncovering a Mourinho is, and this is just from my personal perspective, is when Mourinho burst onto the scene when he went to Chelsea, let's say. I mean, he could have been a Di Matteo and won the European Cup of Porto as one of those one-offs, because that can happen a lot of the time. But he's obviously proved that he was a talented manager, at least back then, when he had the fresher ideas of anybody around, bar Rafa Benitez. But he had done a lot of coaching to get to that point because he wasn't a player. He had started when he was 19, 20, 21. A lot of these ex-players that are young managers who had professional playing careers are literally walking into these top jobs and not having served the apprenticeship that used to be served way back in the day when I was a young lad. Way back when we were going out up the hills for bread and drippings every weekday before we went to school. Back in those old days. But what you would do was you would finish playing 29, 30 back in the old days before all the fitness stuff. And then you become a coach of like the under 14s or the under 16s or the reserve team coach for 20 years. And then you might become an assistant manager so that when you did get to be the top guy, you knew the job. You knew it inside and out. You knew the tactical stuff, but you also knew how to handle the players and how to handle the board. Is that education now being missed with all these flash new, like Vincent Kompanies and De Zerbis, who have the nice glittering playing careers and are just like Alonso, put into jobs? They might have some initial success, but they're still technically learning on the job.
Yeah, and I think it boils down a lot of times to these organizations viewing the head coaching position as a marketing tool rather than a beacon of furthering the club. They view the manager as a figurehead rather than a person that can mold players and can bring tactics. And it's not universal. It's not something where every club is just looking to have that guy that they can throw out for press conferences and do the one-liners that are gonna put the make the papers happy. But yeah, I agree that there should be a lot more of that, just climbing up the ladder for a lot of these players, because a lot of these guys do have that brain for this. They do have the wherewithal to go be coaches, but the fact that they're getting thrown into the deep end so quickly, and there's circumstances where, and I think Steven Gerrard at Rangers is the most glaring example where you're like, all right, this is a big fish in a small pond, and he crushed it. Now we're going to try to put him in the ocean, and oh shit, he got eaten up real quick. Now how does he adapt? And he just goes, oh, well, my adaptation is I'm Steven Gerrard. Did you see my goal against Olympiacos? That was really fucking cool. And I know that there's like a love affair with all these former players, and there's a lot of times where you try to like give them the benefit of the doubt because it may not be the best situation. The thing with Vincent Kompany, where like they had probably one of the best seasons in the championship ever, and then they did nothing, and then they came up and they got absolutely pasted. And now he's being linked with a Bayern job just because he's the former captain of Belgium, and they're just skipping steps. I think there's a lot of things where they're just going, oh, we're going to look over the fact that his team just finished 19th and they were pretty much useless for 80% of the Premier League season. But he's Vincent Kompany. He scored that goal against Leicester to get the title for Man City. He was the captain for Belgium when they were the number one team of the world. We can't turn the opportunity down to bring him in and be our manager. Yeah, he's had 50. So if you want to put like the entirety of Burnley's season where they were promoted and the 4 games that Burnley were fairly competitive in the Premier League this past year, you got a 50-game sample of him being competent as a manager, and you're going to put him in charge of one of the top 5 teams in the world. Good luck with that. Enjoy your round of 16 or I'm sorry,
It's all different.
Class F, Group 9, Champions League.
Round of 64.
However, oh,
it's not you tonight, Brian. But while Trevor's disappeared, here's the question I want to ask just on that managerial merry-go-round and failing upwards. We talk about company getting a team relegated twice, and then, as Trevor says, getting into one of the top 5 clubs in the world. And then we have Xabi Alonso, who we talked about when he was put up as a Liverpool contender for the Liverpool job. I certainly wasn't convinced until I saw him win trophies, because he's taken over a legend if he was taken over. But my question to you is, does Xabi Alonso win the Bundesliga next year?
It's hard to say right there. It depends on what happens with. I think that Bayern right there is in a very transitional period, so I can't really go there and put them at that. It also depends on who's going to actually go and become Bayern's manager. Dortmund right now is also in a thing with a little bit of a transition. It also depends on what happens with their squad. I mean, it's going to be competitive. It's definitely going to be competitive. I mean, I forgot to mention Stuttgart, who is right up in the middle of it too. So I mean, do I think he's going to win? I think the Champions League may be something that's going to take, because I think he's going to lose some of his big assets right there, because they're going to see like that. They're going to see the work kid. He's gone. I'm sorry. I don't see him sticking around right there. I think that there's enough money is going to get thrown at him, either by us or by City or by Bayern or somebody like that. And I think that he's going to have to deal with the liquidated squad. I think that the Champions League may be too much for that squad unless he's able to rebuild it. And I don't think they're gonna repeat Bundesliga champions. I think that I was with you about Xabi Alonso. I thought that he still needed to have a little bit more weight behind it before he went to like a Liverpool, or went to where I think he's going to go, Real Madrid. I mean, I think that he needs to have a little bit behind him, and I think that a couple more seasons, we'll see what where he's at. But I don't think Xabi Alonso will ever be a Liverpool manager. I seriously doubt it. I think that it'll be probably from him moving to there, probably directly to back over to Spain for Real Madrid.
I think it's an interesting juxtaposition. So I've been talking about managers not getting that apprenticeship, and people look. It just annoys me when fans just go doolally about players. They go doolally about a player being a potential manager based on what they did as a player, and not what the record is. And we saw there last night a 61-year-old manager completely outstripped the young hot buck on the managerial scene, and did completely and utterly unfancied Atalanta and now Europa League champions. And I mean, from what I saw in the highlights, essentially he outcoached Xabi Alonso. He absolutely outcoached him from start to finish.
I mean, the Lookman hat trick.
Yeah, I mean, and let's keep on the theme of the night. Lookman was a player that Brendan Rodgers brought to Leicester City on loan and wanted to keep him. So that's a feather in his cap when we get to talk about him. But nonetheless, the point is that we're getting a manager who's got a little bit of experience at least, and he wasn't one of the big players in world football. In fact, you might not even, you'd be hard pressed to find what he actually did, because he didn't, he wasn't playing for Real Madrid, he wasn't playing for Manchester United or Arsenal or Bayern Munich or Barcelona or Juventus. So he's studied his craft, and especially in Holland, where they're very particular about coaching and coaching methodologies, much like the Germans are. But for those managers, for Alonso, for Gerrard, who also have the same sort of, he's going to be a fantastic manager, I can feel it because of his playing career. Wayne Rooney, who can't even get League One jobs at this point.
Frank Lampard.
Joey Barton, who was never a fantastic player of any description, but he's stuck down around the lower leagues. There is something to be said, isn't there, for maybe the club owners with all of the cash and all of their hedge funds and all of their analysis and data analytics to go and see who's successful over the longest periods of time and find out why.
Well, I mean, we'll go back to Mourinho. Mourinho got trained from Bobby Robson, so I mean, so that's that just tells you the whole different philosophy right there that we talk about building up and building up your repertoire and actually go there learning your craft. I mean, you can even say right there that even in most major sports, you barely see the big name superstars become successful coaches slash managers or anything like that because it doesn't happen. I mean,
it's only soccer. It's
yeah.
literally only soccer where your playing career, as far as I can see. Like Bill Belichick, not a professional NFL player. Who's the really large fat guy with the moustache and the hat?
Andy Reid.
Yeah,
as far as the only Andy Reid I know grew up the road from me in Crumlin and played for the Republic of Ireland. But you know what I mean? In America, coaching is prized as a skill in and of itself.
Yes. Yeah, I mean,
whereas in soccer, they just seem to think that it's a whole different. You didn't play the game, son. You didn't play the game. What would you know? I mean, Harry Redknapp came out with that very, very thing in some press thing, or maybe it was on that TalkSport about all the academy coaches are ruining English players because they never played the game to a high level. So how could some of you only play public football tell you how to make that pass up through the defenders? And like, you do that at public football. It's just faster and quicker at the top level. Like,
but really, if you look at it right there, I mean, some of these guys who out there who, I mean, I guess Zinedine Zidane would be like the only superstar, but of course he was handed like the best, the most incredible squad you could ever imagine. I mean, we could probably go. He had like the FIFA All-Star squad right there. I mean, on the playing for him, I could probably win a couple of league titles and a Champions League with that squad. I mean. But these guys out there, that you see right there, the Pellegrinis and these guys out there, are guys that you don't really notice that are they played football, but they didn't play football. They weren't those guys who were out there in the open right there. I mean, you could say that look at Kevin Keegan. Kevin Keegan came out there and managed right there. It wasn't successful. I mean, he had I think did he get one league title out of from Newcastle when he was there? I don't think he did. No, so I mean,
he did have a number one record though.
Yeah, I mean, then you had like Kenny Dalglish. I mean, of course, Kenny came through, but of course, those are different right there because you went through the boot room, you went through the whole process right there of actually learning. You came there, got your badges, you came there, did all this process right there. You just don't see that right there. These guys are like, okay, so I retire. Guess what? I'm going to go right there and stand behind some guy who's a manager for a couple seasons, and I'm going to become the next big manager. I mean, Gerard came in and went to a youth setup right there for us. From the youth setup, we went to Rangers, and then he came there and played in that squad right there, which is probably basically third division of English football. Even though Rangers and Celtic supporters don't want to admit it, but and won the league there. Then all of a sudden, okay, I'm gonna go to Villa. What do you do at Villa? He fucked them up big time in like less than 2 months. They were gone. I mean, the only way that they were studied by is by UI Emery right there, and so. I mean, yeah, you can't. I mean, I just don't understand this fascination with these youth coaches that with no experience. I mean, it baffles me right there. I'd rather have somebody who's hard knocks, learns their badges, and then goes and plays right there. Yeah, I mean, our new manager right there is a younger manager, but he learned his trade. Gerard, Lampard, go down the list. Didn't learn a trade. They just played. That's it.
But that I think that's a good point. That was in the sense that Gerard didn't. He took the under-23s, if I remember correctly, like the team that had the professional players on it when they come back from injury, rather than the under-14s where you have to actually learn how to teach players how to do the thing. But it's also like a thing for me where somebody like Andre Villas-Boas, who didn't play a single kick a ball for probably €2, let alone a €10,000 a week contract, has more trophies than Harry Redknapp, who was an English international. Somebody who learned how to coach just by coaching. But in terms of Trevor, of the management, we move on to like the specific ones we're talking about. Is there, for those kinds of players, for the Steven Gerrards, the Wayne Rooneys, the Vincent Kompanies, is there maybe a thought process in their head that they want to be able to say, I learned my trade in the academies, but what they're really doing is they're just ticking a box. They're doing one season of it and then going on to the next level. And I'll say this, and anybody who watches this who's coached and did the coaching licenses and badges and did it with professional players knows that they get their hands held through every single one of those qualifications. So they can't even say they learned on the coaching courses because they don't. They tick the box. Whereas the likes of Jose Mourinho, the likes of Jurgen Klopp, when they go and do those education things, they're actually learning how to be coaches and then applying at the lower levels, making all the mistakes out of eyeshot of any big kind of media things. And then when they finally get there, you know, Mo Salah's a bit upset he didn't start last game. I've encountered that situation 250 times before. I know how to deal with it now. Is it a case that these ex-players that are zillionaires in comparison with the Kenny Dalglish's and the Graham Souness's of old are just ticking boxes and looking more to stay in the game than they are to become the best coaches they can be? Ignore the first 5 minutes of that question. Just go to the end part.
No, the short answer is yes, because there's so much that comes from the coaching trees, especially in soccer these days, where there's guys that are being pushed up the ladder, I think, far too quickly, and the biggest part of it is that there is no growing pains. They get just thrust into that limelight immediately, and I like to call it the Michael Jordan corollary, where they were like, "Oh, Michael Jordan could never be a coach because anytime somebody made a mistake or did something wrong, they're like, well, I would have done this thing." Like, well, you're Michael Jordan. What? I can't do what you can do. If a midfielder makes a mistake, nobody is looking at like Steven Gerrard and going like, "Oh, I can't do what you did." There's so much that could be gleamed from some of these guys that you're just going, "Oh man, that there was a formation change needed." Because as a player, you're saying like, "I can fix all these problems," but when you're relying on players that maybe aren't at your talent level or don't have the knowledge to make the adjustments that you made as a player, you get frustrated and you don't know how to combat those. And I think there's a lot of players that haven't taken those lumps as a coach long enough where they, like you said, they've seen this scenario hundreds of times and have developed in their own way ways to deal with that. Instead, they have to just kind of revert back to what they know and how they dealt with it as players. And that may not be in congruence with what today's players who are, we'll say, more coddled, and that there's a lot more nuance with dealing with them, but also may not be up to the skill level. Like if you're asking a midfielder to come in and try to like take shots from outside the box, okay, yeah. If Steven Gerrard's telling you like, okay, I'm not you. I don't have that skill. If Xabi Alonso is asking guys to ping 40 and 50-yard passes and then get back on defense and make the game-saving tackle, yeah, I may not have that in my skill set. And if you getting mad at me because I can't do what you did as a player, that there's just I think there's just a consistent disconnect where these guys haven't gone through those and I'll slip into Dusty Rhodes for a second. Those hard times where they just went through those things where they're in League One and going, oh God, we have to get a point against Portsmouth today, and we have 3 of our starting midfielders out, so we got to just get these guys and make it work. there's always that, well, I have these unlimited resources because I'm me, and they don't know how to react when that's not there.
There you go. Let's move on a little bit. I was so transfixed with the Dusty Rhodes, but I believe it's "We thought better." Is how you say it correctly. But two managers who have encountered hard times of various descriptions. There they are in their nice finery. Brendan Rodgers, whilst being a slim, svelte Liverpool manager, and Maurizio Pochettino. The debate was who's better, who's objectively better, and who gets the nod. My belief is that if Brendan Rodgers had a foreign name and a Hispanic or an Italian name, people would be rating him exactly the same as Maurizio Pochettino is. Maurizio Pochettino hasn't won that much. And there's nothing about his teams that are ear-chatteringly tactically brilliant that makes the rest of the game sit up and take notice. So my question is two parts. Number one, for Brian and Trevor, who would you pick over the other, taking into account their flaws and their ability? Because they are both talented coaches. There's no two ways about that, but they're also both flawed coaches in ways that Jurgen Klopp isn't, or the ways that Pep Guardiola isn't, or that Carlo Ancelotti isn't. They have major flaws that hold them back from ever being at that top level. So who would you pick? And number two, what is the criteria that people are using, do you think, where they would say that a manager who bottled the league title against Leicester couldn't get PSG to win? Even though he came in halfway through the season, they were still first or second place. It was tight against Lille in France. Hasn't won a European trophy and took his time to get going with Spurs and with Chelsea. Why would he be more prominent as a coach in people's eyes than Brendan Rodgers? Let's start with you, Brian.
Whew. Well, that's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of question in a way, because it's just almost like our used to be our end of the show questions right here. Who would you rather have?
Threshold questions.
Yeah. So I've been through Rodgers. We've been through Rodgers. I can't go through Rodgers ever again. I mean, for one thing, with Rodgers is it's man management, and it's also these little gimmicks that Rodgers has that sicken me. That stupid brown envelope thing that was in that little documentary.
I was gonna say the envelope. Oh,
yeah,
no.
I mean, I could go on for days and days about how much of a shit that was. I mean, plus the whole thing with Sterling that he went through and stuff like that. Yeah, I could do it. Do I rate Rodgers better than Pochettino? Absolutely not. I think they're right on par with each other. I really do. I think they're fairly close. I think with Pochettino, the one thing with him is management is better. I mean, but again, hasn't won shit. I mean, you could win League One with what you had in your place. You had Mbappe in there. You had at that point one of the world's best players if not the world besides Messi at the point. And you could win that league. I'm sorry. I mean, that's terrible. I mean, okay, but if you want to go with Brendan Rodgers bottled it right there with it. It bottled the English Premiership too. Same thing. I mean, you could figure the Crystal Palace.
Couldn't you say though he had a better excuse because he didn't have the best squad? Like nobody expected us to do anything that season, and he did.
I mean, he
had Dayan Lovren and Sacco and Simon Mignolet as his back three defensive stalwarts.
But I mean, we let a lead against Crystal Palace go. That would have been it. I mean, we came there and drew. You had Suarez. That front line right there you had was probably one of the best striking partnerships you had at the moment right now in European football. You let a lead drop and you wound up drawing 4-4, which basically was what lost us. The Steven Gerrard slip. We didn't lose the league off of that. We lost the league off of Palace. I mean, I've said that for years and years and years. But I mean, with him, I'd probably have to go with Pochettino right there in the long run, right there. I mean, it would be a disastrous opportunity that I would not want. But I think that I think honestly, if I could, I'd have to go with him. I can't go with Rodgers again, just because of the pukiness that Rodgers is, in my opinion.
So, but would you say then though that that's just a personality thing?
Oh yeah, definitely,
know,
definitely.
Yeah. But would you care what his personality was if he was winning the trophies?
I don't think Rodgers. I don't think Rodgers will win a trophy. Is capable of winning a trophy in England. I don't think he is.
He won the FA Cup.
He won the FA Cup with us, yes, but
no, he won the FA Cup with
Leicester, yeah,
against Chelsea.
Yeah, but I just don't think he's capable of doing that right there. I mean, he's damaged goods. I mean, I really now Pochettino's damaged goods in my opinion now also. I mean, I just don't. It's going to take a lot for him to crawl back right there from with that. But like Trevor said earlier, Pochettino came there and brought a squad right there that was in from like in double digits up to a European spot. I mean, that tells you something. I mean, Brendan Rodgers came there and had a lesser team that get relegated for the most part. I mean,
but he also took them to fifth twice.
Yeah. I mean, he won with Celtic. But again, Rodgers won.
Yeah, but he also won the thing that everybody's talking about Xabi Alonso for. He didn't lose a single domestic game in his first season at Celtic, which nobody's ever done since the 1800s. And he wasn't doing it with Chelsea players, with Bayer Leverkusen's players. He was doing it with Celtic's players, who he didn't even pick.
So he beat Rangers twice. I mean,
I mean, like we talk about Bayern Munich being one of the top 5 clubs,
True.
but they don't have to be anybody except
exactly. But yeah,
what my point is that it's very contextual, isn't it? Like,
absolutely.
Saying, like, if we want to put Pochettino, that's the main question. I'll go back to Trevor as well with it. Is what is it about Pochettino? And clearly for you, it's a personality thing, which is an entirely fair point. Is Rodgers is a bit cringy, I think is the best way to put it. Like, you just don't want him to say anything. Like, he'd almost be better off as an assistant coach.
Yes.
With a better head coach ahead of him who could be the personality, like a Jurgen Klopp almost.
Yeah, he's like he learned. It's like he learned from Mourinho, but he did go there actually getting thing off of it.
No. He learned from Mourinho without being charming, because Mourinho was actually funny when you go back to the start.
Yeah.
But it is. I mean, that is an important part, because we've just spent weeks talking about how brilliantly Jurgen Klopp represented Liverpool fans and the city of Liverpool and the club of Liverpool, just on sheer personality alone. None of us talked about his tactics the way we talked about Rafa Benitez's 4-2-3-1 in 2004 and 5 or 2005. But his sheer personality dragged us to where we wanted to be. So in personality, I think it's a big, big thing. But in terms of the overall picture of how fans perceive things, because it goes back to Trevor as well, like the managerial merry-go-round is, Graham Potter was lauded before he got the Chelsea job simply for the fact that he managed in a country that wasn't in the United Kingdom, even if it was just like was it Sweden or Denmark or somewhere that he managed. Is the perception just such a big thing for fans of the Premier League about who you want or don't want as your manager?
Yeah, I think perception becomes reality for a lot of,
especially if you're Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah, Brendan Rodgers, aka Dwight Schrute. He should be the assistant to the regional manager in any instance. Whenever you remember, anybody who watched the American Office, when Dwight ascended to certain levels, the show completely fell off a cliff. That's Brendan Rodgers. When he outkicks his coverage, yes, what he did with Leicester in that time, when they had that roster assembled before it completely got disassembled, was what he did is what he does. He is great at
making other managers, teams better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a wakeboarder. He loves coming in and just taking what's there and just riding that out for as long as he can. But eventually the boat's going to stop. I think with Pochettino, he's a guy that is obviously talented and can pull a lot out of a lot of players. I think his big thing has been, in the end, his choices. Because, and granted, moving from Southampton to Spurs, that just a step up. That was something that you wouldn't fault him for taking ever. And he kind of ran his course there, got him to a Champions League final. He did so much there that didn't result in a trophy. But I think that is just indicative of how Spurs was run. I don't think that should necessarily be entirely at his feet. I think a lot of that has to come with just how Daniel Levy had such a foothold on things, and any time that he would come to them with real just I need this one thing to get over the hump, be like, oh, well, how about I don't do that and sell two of your more favored players and go get two guys from like Real Betis that don't fit your system at all. Will that work? Okay, sweet. Yeah, the PSG thing, there's no defense. The defense rests. He completely crapped his pants in France. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it did.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah. There's nothing there. But PSG, that's its own mess. That for all that money they pumped into it, and now they're going with a youth movement and whatever. They'll never win the Champions League, and fucking good riddance to them. I don't care. But the Chelsea thing, and we talked about it coming into this year. With him at the helm and that roster, as haphazard as it was constructed, that first game they were like, we're lucky that we're getting Chelsea this early, because we know once he gets it together, that team is going to be formidable. And if you get that fixture out of the way this early, hopefully we have our shit together by the time they have their shit together, and everything kind of collides in a beautiful bit of football brilliance. Granted, it did not, but
I mean, like if we're gonna like damn Brendan Rodgers with faint praise, Pochettino couldn't beat our kids in a final.
Yeah.
It's not a good look, really, is it? If we're talking about perceptions like this, and this is the kind of point I want to make, is that if like personalities do make, I think Brian's bang on the money with that. How you present yourself as a coach is almost as important as what you can do with the tactics board or on the training pitch. And Brendan Rodgers doesn't present him well as anything other than Team Brendan Rodgers. Whereas Mauricio Pochettino, for all his flaws, he's trying to build something the way Rafa Benitez was trying to always build something. Which leads me just to conclude this, and it's a short answer question from Popper and Trevor. Does this make Mauricio Pochettino the Rafa Benitez of our times? A man full of great ideas, but will never get to a club that will help him build with the resources that he would need.
I'll call him Diet Rafa.
Yeah, Rafa Light.
So you mean Rafa before the donuts?
Yeah. Rafa zero, with zero sugar. Rafa. How about that?
Rafa before he got the Valencia. Valencia dinner experience.
But let's move on. But if people want to give us your thoughts on that, because it was such a hot topic on Discord, and it was a hot topic tonight as well. But it's such an interesting way that people look at managers, and it goes beyond records. And I think that's something that we always need to bear in mind, especially when we have a new manager like this chap here, who's pretty much like unofficially confirmed on Sunday by Jurgen Klopp, brilliantly and cheekily. So he's already got a song and everything. But footage from the Feyenoord last game, they played really well in that last game, showed the connection that he had with their fans, which bodes well for Liverpool. That he is one of those managers. Again, just to hark back a tiny bit, is Brendan Rodgers never connected with us. as Liverpool fans, not on an emotional level. It was all cerebral. It was all, I know this game. I know this game inside out. I've got character. I've got ability. But no trophies at the time, Brendan. But it was all about that. Whereas Arne Slot seemed like he really gutturally connected with the Feyenoord fans, and that's what we want to see for Liverpool. So my question is, when between now and the start of the next season, the first kickoff for Liverpool in the Premier League, forget all the preseason games and all that, when are you going to look at the whole situation and go, I'm over Jurgen? There's no rebound manager. I'm all in on Arne Slot properly, because it feels almost like a breakup with Jurgen Klopp. And no, there's always a rebound person when you break up, and then you meet the person that you're going to have the long-term relationship with. We don't get that in soccer unless there's an interim manager, which we don't have. So the question is, because we're going to get a whole new coaching staff, whole new dietitians, and probably fitness. Although Taffarel is sticking around, which I'm quite happy with, because he seems like a good goalkeeper, but goalkeeping coach. But he was a bit dodgy as a goalkeeper, so maybe there's something in there when he played. But when we'll go with Brian, when do you think, if it hasn't happened already, do you stop looking at this team as Jurgen Klopp's and it starts to become Arne Slot's, his regime? Is it going to take you time into the middle of the season to see how things go, or will you be all in before a first ball is kicked?
I mean, we have to be all in before the first ball is kicked. I think that that last video of Klopp opening up the letters right there should be like a kind of like as emotional as that was. I mean, it's this whole week has been like this, like a big tidal wave of like ugly crying people right there, and seeing all this like Klopp memories and stuff like that.
Might have been for you guys, very attractive cry.
But I mean, like I said, those were the days, my friend. I mean, we have to look to the future right there. I mean, nothing's permanent.
I classily cried.
Nothing's ever permanent right there. There's always change. I mean, we have to realize that right there. It's like what, I'm a Doctor Who fan right there. So, we all change throughout our lives right there. Every different person right there. You just got to remember who you were before. I mean, you have to remember this club's always going to be Liverpool right there, but it's always going to be a different aspect to this club. So with that saying right there, is Arne Slot right there is going to come in. He's going to go out there and have a little bit of a tweak to the philosophy. We have to be all on board. I mean, us as supporters right there, yeah, we're going to be critical like we always are, because that's what we're here for. As we love this club this much, to be critical of the club right there, but still support them. But I think that I will go to the first press conference that we see in preseason right there, and you see him, or the first time you see him do the lead on there. That's when right there, this is Arne Slot's club. And, that's what we all need to go out there and say, this is Arne Slot's club. Thank you, Jurgen. Appreciate everything you did the past 9 years. On we go.
Trevor, how about you? Is there going to be a point beforehand, or do you want to wait and see? Or shocker of shockers, are you going to say this is an Arne Slot team the day Darwin Núñez scores his hat-trick and they're all easy sitters? And then, Arne Slot's put his impact on the team.
I think it has to be something where, yeah, and I understand that we're all sad and nostalgic about Jurgen leaving, and that's rightfully so, for everything that he's done for this club. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He is someone that will go down in the annals of Liverpool history as somebody that has just brought so much prosperity. But I think you just got to rip the Band-Aid off, and now this is Arne Slot's team. And now we're like, oh, well, Jurgen played this guy in this spot. No, we can't think about that anymore. You can't talk about how, there was this. Come on, that's too soon.
Hey, hell no. I was about that. Hell no. Lockdown.
But yeah, the main guys are obviously Trent and Darwin. I think those are the two main guys that will be talked about ad nauseum on all of these shows heading into the slot regime, and seeing how they're deployed in whatever system he sees fit. Whether it's something where we got the three at the back with the two wing backs, so on and so forth, and then you got Trent in some sort of weird double pivot, whatever you want to do. There's so many things that we've all seen from the Feyenoord tape, and by that I mean we've watched 2 Feyenoord games, and
I watched 3, just to be accurate.
Oh God damn it!
One of them was an accident. I didn't even know it was on.
Now I gotta go watch a third just to be on par. But yeah, it's something where I think this is something, and we've as sports fans fallen into this pitfall a lot where you want it to just be this guy's taking over from this guy. How is he going to bring in everything from what this guy did, instead of just going, let this guy have his footprint. Let Arnie take what we have and mold it into what he wants, instead of going, what can he cut off the mold that's already there to go the way that he wants to go. I think there's lots of positives that we could see from guys that we had frustrations from, and I've heard on the morning show that we are the Darwin Defamation League down here, and there's just this huge crying.
Why can't we be the Darwin Defamation team and then we be DDT? And then what we could do then is we could
now we're gonna get Jake Roberts coming after.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Though we could get rid of the team tune we normally use and put the old Jake Roberts 1980s theme, which is fantastic.
Oh, yeah, that is a good theme.
Yeah.
But are we going to get rid of the original music, or are we going to get rid of the 70s porn? Which one are we?
Oh, that's a good.
Which one are we going to sacrifice for Jake Roberts' theme song?
I would sacrifice the 70s porn for
yeah. That's the right call. That's the right call. It is in the end. But my thing is how, and for all the people calling for his head and everything, and it's like, oh well, he's deleted all the stuff and he's got all these links to Barcelona. There's so much that could be done with a new manager with him in a system that's not a 4-3-3 where it's just incumbent on 2 players that don't want to cross the ball, getting the ball into it. I'm excited to see what this season holds for Darwin. And I'm going to love having this conversation next week with number 1 Darwin fan, Anon, when he comes on Thursday and we have our donut bonanza. But I'm just, there's so many questions that we need answering from how Arnie Slot's going to run things, that we gotta cross that bridge, and then we'll handle the blowback afterwards for like the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season.
So before we wrap things up, Brian, and for Trevor, we go back to Trevor as well with it. There was a clip during the week that I saw. I actually only saw it yesterday. I don't know how old it is, but which already endeared me to Arnie Slot, and it's in the Dutch league with Anthony, I think it was. Faking an injury and getting the yellow card and then the red card, and it's Arnie Slot just laughing his ass off at him the entire time. That's the kind of thing that's already going to endear you to your new club before you've even set foot on the training field, isn't it?
Yep. Oh, I saw that. That was phenomenal.
It was great. I mean, how could you not enjoy that right there? Anthony's like the biggest waste of money I think I've ever seen in this league. And it seems like that club has been pretty good with the Twins they had. I mean, they're pretty good about blowing money on players right there. But yeah, I mean, how could you not come there and enjoy that right there? Seeing him laugh at him right there. So yeah, it's I'm ready for this era to start. I think it's going to be exciting.
I want to point out it's the second biggest waste of money ever after Anand wasting money in his donuts next week that he's not going to finish. And we all know he's not going to. But Trevor, is that
with the glazed?
Don't get glazed. No, get glazed. Don't get chocolate.
Don't get chocolate. No.
The chocolate one in any sense, double chocolate, it's a trap.
It's a trap.
Hey, I do want to say right there that we went 53 minutes of this program without mentioning Darwin Nunez. So they can't go through and knock us that much right there about
it's already a time of change. It's already the best of times, worst of times for us.
DDT.
DDT, I'll start that for next week for Anand. Maybe we'll play the Jake Roberts theme tune whilst
all right. I'm gonna get one of those weird like Jake Roberts backgrounds when they did like the vignettes in the corner.
So it's like the Dozen Donuts team. Is that what it is?
Oh, there you go. We're rocking now.
Oh God, yeah. We got some. We're all over the place with the DDT.
Yeah,
okay,
we've got two.
Right, I'm gonna come up with some stuff next week.
So here's what we're going to do then. Number one, keep commenting on these the videos, and even after we're finished live, you can still comment on YouTube and stuff, and we can pick these things up. Make sure you're joining our Discord channel so you can see the great conversations we have about Brendan Rodgers and Pochettino, and then get the rollerblades ready. For me, I'm not eating the donuts this next week. I may join in, but it's all in on. For his very, very weirdly confident prediction about Thiago. It just remains to say, number one, keep commenting, keep liking and subscribing. Make sure you're following us on the socials, on the YouTube, on Instagram, and on Facebook, and on Twitter, formerly known as X, formerly known as Prince, formerly known as the Hardy Boys, and possibly the Bushwhackers. And make sure you're on our Patreon as well, so you can get all the extra goodies and that you're interacting with us. We want to see what you have to say, and the most fun or intellectually spurring comments we put up and we talk about them. That's how it works here at ASTV. But this is Thursday night with no game to look forward to. It's really weird. I really don't like the end of season. Everybody says they want a break, but when it comes to it, I'd just rather watch Liverpool next week. And I wish the season would start selfishly, just because with Brian, I'm so excited to see what Aaron Slot is going to do with us. But join us next Thursday, definitely next Thursday, for the Anand Donut Fest, which may also become the famous vomit episode, depending on how it all goes.
Dozen donuts for Thiago. How about another DDT?
There you go. You're on fire here, Brian. I think you're hosting next week's show.
Get into the Discord because we're just gonna make a bunch of like DDTs.
Gonna make a bunch of DDT. There's your reason for the season. Get onto the Discord channel and give us all.
And also, just tell us your favorite Jake Roberts DDT. Just a moment
it's Ricky Steamboat on the concrete floor. That's the only.
Yeah, and if you say the blindfold match, you're a horrible person.
Yes, we'll
just leave that at that.
But we've got our morning coffee tomorrow, and we will. I think we'll have a special.
It's going to be reckless as hell.
It's going to be reckless as hell, and then our Monday podcast, possibly on Memorial Day. I don't know how that works because I keep forgetting there's always public holidays over here because there's not as many of them as there are in Europe. But for us guys, three, we will see you next week for the Donut Fest. Possibly the Jake Roberts theme tune if it doesn't get us pulled off the air. But for me, Brian, and Trevor, have a good one. Enjoy the weekend, the long weekend. Stay safe. And for the spirit of what is in it, as the saying goes, all gave some, but some gave all, and we remember them for a reason. We couldn't do these podcasts without them. So we will see everybody next week. And after that very, very somber occasion, we now have to put on the worst music possible. So I do apologize to my granddad who fought in World War II and everybody.
For all your sacrifice, here's from some 70s award.
Maybe we'll just do the trap one instead. We'll do the trap one because that's a little bit more fitting. So we will see everybody next Thursday for the Donut Fest. Have a good one.